Little did you all know, I'm more than just a public intellectual. This is only my day job. By night, I be hustling in the mean streets. Playa. To understand the life of a young hustler like me, you have to study the greats before me. Pablo Escobar, Chris R.
Where's my money, Denny?
Where's my fucking money, Denny? Did you lose my fucking money? My fucking money! Where's my fucking money, Denny?
Take him to the police.
But perhaps the greatest one of them all, the Central Intelligence Agency. So like most normal people, I was looking through old declassified documents, and one of the documents mentioned a secret airline in Southeast Asia that was owned by the CIA. This would lead me down a rabbit hole that I cannot get out of. I even bought a book for the video using my hustling money, and they say drugs make you stupid. So to understand America's role in the opium trade, we'll need to understand Vietnam. Vietnam is located in Southeast Asia and was a part of French Indochina along with Laos and Cambodia. During the Second World War, French Indochina was attacked by the Fire Nation! And the colony was occupied by the Japanese until 1945. After the Japanese surrendered, the French attempted to retake the colony, and this would start the First Indochina War, which is complex but was fought between the French with support from America and the Viet Minh, who were led by famous Asian grandpa Ho Chi Minh. After 8 years of fighting, a peace agreement was made where the Vietnamese would control the north and the south would be led by an American puppet government. A year later, the Second Indochina War would break out, which you probably just know as the Vietnam War, when communist rebels called the Viet Cong with support from the north started an insurgency in the south, which would be the catalyst to the CIA's involvement in the opium trade.
I gotta do it, man.
To understand how the CIA supported the opium trade, you need to understand an important piece of Cold War diplomacy called domino theory. Domino theory was the belief that if one nation would follow the communism, another nation would follow, and so on, so America would try to fight communism at any chance it can get. This would lead to conflicts all throughout the globe, with one side receiving aid from America and the other side receiving aid from the Soviets. Where did this happen, you may ask? It'd probably be faster to name places where it didn't happen. So the Americans, more specifically the CIA, would give money and weapons to literally anyone who pinky promised to fight communism. You may be thinking that giving money and weapons out like an up-and-coming rapper handing out his mixtapes may be a bad idea, but the CIA only supports people who stand for American values and freedom. Like the former king of Iran, the Italian Mafia, the Yakuza, Chiang Kai-shek, the former dictator of Taiwan, Pinochet, the former dictator of Chile, Mobutu, the former dictator of the Congo. And wait a minute, all these are criminal organizations or dictators. Is there anyone on this list who wasn't a dictator? Oh, I found somebody. Famous American patriot Osama bin Laden.
So are you Chinese or Japanese?
I live in California last 20 years, but first come from Laos.
Huh?
We are Laotian. From Laos, stupid. Population 4.7 million.
So are you Chinese or Japanese?
Laos is a nation in Southeast Asia that was a part of French Indochina that would get independence along with Vietnam in 1954. Soon after gaining independence, Laos would face a lot of instability, which would lead to a civil war. The next few years of Laotian politics are complicated, and I can barely wrap my head around it, but basically there were two sides. The Prophet Lao, who were communists, led by Prince... I'm not pronouncing that. He was just commonly known as the Red Prince. And the other side was the Kingdom of Laos, who were American-backed. It gets more complicated in 1960 when a military coup happens and a third side joins the war called the Neutralists, who wanted an end to all the foreign intervention since America was deeply involved in the conflict. Why is America interested in this random Asian nation, you may ask? Well, during the Vietnam War, the Viet Cong in the South needed weapons and aid, and most of that aid went for the Ho Chi Minh Trail, which was a series of trails that ran through Laos and Vietnam. So in order to attempt to slow down the supply lines of the Viet Cong, America bombed Laos. Like, a lot. 2.5 million tons of bombs, a lot. To visualize that, imagine a plane load of bombs being dropped every 8 minutes for 24 hours straight, for 9 straight years. As you imagine, this wasn't good for Laotians, since they have to worry about a civil war in their country and the threat of being bombed by Americans. So as the political turmoil increased, normal Laotians faced poverty, and to make a living, many peasant farmers had to start growing opium.
Joey, have you ever been in a Turkish prison?
So there's a region in Southeast Asia called the Golden Triangle, which is made of northern Thailand, western Laos, and eastern Myanmar. This region has ideal conditions to grow opium, which can be refined into heroin. This region is mountainous and remote, so during the Laotian Civil War, the region would be controlled by warlords who are often American-backed so they can fight the Prophet Lao. As one of the warlords named General Tuan Chil Win put it when asked by a journalist on why he deals with opium, he fought in the nationalist army of Chiang Kai-shek in the Chinese Civil War. He fought against the Japanese, and at the dinner table opened his shirt to show us a shrapnel scar he got from them in 1937. With apparent frankness, he would say, "That is why we deal with opium. We have to continue to fight the evil of communism. And to fight, you must have an army, and an army must have guns, and to buy guns, you must have money. In these mountains, the only money is opium." Before the Vietnam War, much of the opium would be moved through jungle trails to ports where it would be shipped off to heroin factories in France or Hong Kong, where the opium would be refined into the final product and shipped off to America or Europe. One of the trails used to move opium was the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Seeing an opportunity to fund their war effort, the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong started taxing opium caravans. That and American bombing slowed down the flow of opium, and that hurt the wallets of the anti-communist warlords. The CIA, not wanting to hurt the fight against communism, started to help the warlords by flying opium into Saigon, the South Vietnamese capital, using the CIA's private airline, Air America. Once in Saigon, the opium would either be shipped off to be refined, then sold in America or Europe, or be consumed locally by American soldiers.
I just got one thing to lay on you cats and then I'll split. That I am declaring war on anybody who sells drugs in our community.
But Black Dynamite, I sell drugs in the community.
During the Vietnam War, 36% or 1 out of 3 American soldiers were heroin users, and around 20% or 1 out of 5 American soldiers were considered heroin addicts. This being the result of vast amounts of cheap heroin in Vietnam that came from American-backed warlords. Thankfully, less than 1% of soldiers who returned to America continued to use heroin after a year. During the 1970s, America started to deindustrialize, moving factory jobs overseas. That, and along with a cheap flow of heroin and an increased demand for the drug, created a lot of poverty and crime. Many cities like New York, Detroit, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland all faced decline during this time, some of which they haven't recovered from. And after losing in Vietnam and Watergate, many started to lose faith in the government. So after nearly a decade of decline, people wanted change in government, and that would come in the 1980 presidential election. After losing an embarrassing defeat, former President Jimmy Carter left office, and in his place, Satan was elected. And one drug crisis would be replaced with another, also caused by the CIA funding terrorists. Funny how that works out, isn't it? Before we go, I'd like to thank Alfred W. McCoy for being my main source for this video and writing one of the most interesting books I have gotten to read. You can find a copy of it on Wikipedia for free if you're interested. Go check it out. With all of that, thank you for watching. Next video, out never. Bye!